What's going on, everybody? This is Trevor,
And this is Tyler.
and welcome to episode one of our TnT football podcast. We're going to be discussing the games in taking place in the NFL this week, give our thoughts on the games, and then pick some games against the spread. Uh, just want to note this is for entertainment purposes only, just in case.
Yep.
So, we're both big football guys. I'm a Packer fan.
I am a Bear fan.
So we got a divided household here. But we both watch a good amount of football. We're fairly knowledgeable, having a decent year in betting, so we figured why not share it with the world.
Of course.
So, starting off here, good week to start off. Week 12, got 3 Thursday games on Thanksgiving, of course. Tons of noon games on Sunday, and a few afternoon games, and then obviously Sunday and Monday night. So, that being said, we'll jump right into game number one, Houston and Detroit. I'm sure many of you listening to this always watch all three games on Thanksgiving. We tend to watch a lot of Detroit games because they're in the NFC North, and we
Yep.
both have a vested interest. Um, Obviously, Detroit got shut out last week. They looked really, really bad against Carolina, but I think both of these teams obviously not great. Um, Obviously, they both had their struggles. Neither of them has great coaches, so I think this one might come down to whoever has the better quarterback play. Stafford dealing with a little bit of an injury, but I think it could be a fairly close game. I'm leaning towards picking Houston to cover at this point, but I'll let Tyler give his thoughts, and then we'll give our game predictions. And yeah,
Yeah, so like you're saying, this I feel is going to be a close game. It's definitely going to come down to the fourth quarter. Looking at the home and away splits, Detroit is 1-3 at home, whereas they are 3-3 on the road. So with Detroit being home, I mean, just like you were saying, Stafford, he's banged up a little bit. Both teams aren't good, and I think that's going to be hard for uh, Detroit's defense to contain Watson for sure.
mm-hmm.
So, like just like you, I'm kind of leaning towards Houston. Um, and in fact, you know what? I will make it that way. I will take Houston lane the three.
Okay.
Um, so
You want to give a game prediction score wise, or you're just gonna say
I
they're
could
gonna
see
cover?
this game being 24-17. Um, I think I think that it's not going to be too high scoring,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also not going to be a Bears game. I'll just say that.
I hear you. So those of you watching at home, and Tyler as well, I forgot to actually highlight who the favorite is, so I'm putting those in bold, italics, and underline so that there's no questions. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I do think this is going to be a fairly low-scoring game. These early Thanksgiving games always seem to be pretty low-scoring. Detroit does kind of play well, but I'm leaning similar to you. I'm going to take Houston 24-20. So both got Houston to cover here. I think Detroit, they're kind of banged up. So yeah, I guess you want to move on to the next game while I continue to fill out to these favorites.
Yeah. So the next game we have the Washington football team versus Dallas. Um, this is our first game where, as you can see, we have two spreads on the screen, two from different sites, and they are slightly different. And I think that makes a big difference. That half point can be the difference between a push and not. So both the teams are really bad. Uh, Dallas just got Andy Dalton back, um, and but there's no one to block for him at all.
Mm-hmm.
Both everyone on Dallas's O line is banged up in some way, uh, and it's this for being a Thanksgiving game. This one might be the worst of the three
Hmm.
slated for Thursday. Um, but yeah, I think it's just going to be like the Houston Detroit game, very close. Um, and I would not be surprised if we see Washington win, because after all, they did win back in October,
Hmm.
when they beat them 25-3. So I'm leaning towards Washington, um, to cover, but still haven't made up my mind yet.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Andy Dalton is obviously a lot better than what they've been running out there. When he was hurt, I think Garrett Gilbert started the game, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Sixth round rookie.
Yeah,
Obviously,
Danucci,
yeah, Ben
right?
DiNucci. That's right, Ben DiNucci. So he does give them a better chance to win. But kind of like you said, their offensive line. I'm actually going to check the injury report while I'm talking here. Their offensive line just is really bad. And if there's one strength of the Washington football team, it's definitely got to be um, their defensive line. Chase Young and all those first rounders that they got. Definitely going to probably put a lot of pressure on Dalton. Uh, I think really the key for this game is going to be is looks like Ezekiel Elliott was questionable in practice. Not that Washington has a great rush defense, but I think Andy Dalton. He is a veteran. He's obviously not what he used to be, but I think even going on the road, going into Dallas. I think Dallas is maybe a little bit overhyped after beating Minnesota last week. I'm kind of leaning towards Washington as well. Again, you have the key number of 2.5. I have 3, so my spreads are a spread 2. Just for anybody out there curious. So if they do end up winning by a field goal, obviously that'd be a push for me. And depending on who you pick, that can impact
Mm,
it. But you know what? I think I agree with you. I think this is also going to be another kind of sloppy game on Thanksgiving. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Washington over or Washington covering. I do think they'll win. Um, I think I think Dallas. The spread's saying they're about even. I think Washington is a few points better. So I'm going to go with Washington to cover and actually win straight up. I'll take Washington 24 to 14.
yeah, and while were talking about how you were feeling about the game, I was looking at some of the stats, and surprisingly, in terms of pass defense, Washington is ranking first in yards allowed with
Really?
195. And granted, that's also probably because the other team gets a big lead on them and then they just have to run the ball. But that's going to be a struggle for Dallas. So I feel just like you. I think Washington is going to cover. My theory is that the score is going to be 21-17. Washington covers and wins the game. Um, and I think it could very well get out of hand because I think Chase Young's available, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't heard anything to the contrary.
I think he could be in Andy Dalton's face every other snap, and it could just get very ugly for Andy Dalton.
Yeah, he's not on the injury list at all. So okay, good. So that's 2 games. Both of us picking the. We picked the favorite in game one, I believe. I think Houston's favorited. I don't think I messed it
Yes,
up.
Houston is favored by
Okay,
3.
so we're picking one to cover, and I guess both to cover.
Yep.
Picking an
Now,
underdog and a favorite so far.
yeah. Now, do we want to talk about the units
um,
or our confidence points,
I know we had
or are we
talked
gonna
about
save
that.
that for later?
I think we'll just stick with picks right now.
Okay.
Maybe we can get into that in the future, but I
Mm-hmm.
think we're both pretty confident on Washington. We'll talk about units. We
Yeah.
do have a computer model that we've also drawn up that's pretty good. I think this year it's roughly 58%, which is outstanding. It's been pretty good in the past few weeks, but we've had a couple misses here and there. But we'll get
Yep.
into that towards the tail end. So Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Obviously, this is a key game for the Ravens. We all know they're dealing with some players on the COVID list. I think both Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins are both did not practice today, I believe. We're recording this on Tuesday. Um, and I honestly don't think Baltimore is quite as good as some people might think they are. Obviously, Lamar Jackson won the MVP last year. He has not been playing very well this year. They still have a good defense, but I know they're missing Calais Campbell this game and Jimmy Smith, and a couple of the other guys are, maybe not playing. A couple of their interior linemen. But really the biggest loss for them was Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle. When he went down, I think 2 games ago, Lamar Jackson just has not looked very good, in my opinion. I don't watch a ton of them. I did watch most of the game on Sunday against the Titans when they ended up losing. But again, Titans have maybe like the like a bottom 5 defense in the whole NFL. So and Pittsburgh is what they are. Are they the best team in the AFC? Probably not. I'd probably give that to the Chiefs, but they're easily top 3. They have an elite defense, obviously. Roethlisberger's playing well enough. So in this game, right now, I'm leaning towards the Steelers, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. In terms of like Lamar has not looked very good at all this season. In fact, the Ravens are averaging 183 yards per game through the air. Now, that coupled with his legs, that is where it can get challenging for any defense. But I think that Pittsburgh's defense is just too good. Um, and like, there's going to be big plays by Lamar for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but the the defense overall is going to be able to contain Lamar. Um, I think this is going to be a good game. I think that it's going to be closer than the 5.5 for my spread
Mm-hmm.
personally. So right now I'm leaning Baltimore, um, and in fact, I think I'm going to. I think Pittsburgh's going to win, but I think that Baltimore is going to cover. I think this final score is going to be 24-21 Pittsburgh. But like I said, I think Baltimore is going to uh, cover because they do have that plus 5.5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is definitely. I could see it being that way. Really, I think the key for this game is going to come down to if the Ravens have both their top running backs good to go. I think this is going to be our first split, actually. I think the most likely scenario for this game is Pittsburgh wins by 7 points. Um, One thing I will say about this game, obviously, both these teams have pretty good defenses. Um, Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill kind of put up some points on them, but I don't think people realize how good the Titans' offense is. So yeah, this is going to be the one that we differ on. I'm going to go ahead and take the Steelers 24-17 and to beat the spread. I think maybe if you're betting overs and unders, this game might go under. I know Harbaugh and Tomlin are both good coaches, both good defenses. So I don't tend to bet a lot of those, but if you're looking for an over/under bet, this one might be kind of safe. So.
Yeah, and we should also mention that they did play earlier this month,
Mm-hmm.
about 4 weeks ago, with Pittsburgh winning by 4 points. Again, I'm kind of going off that everyone's going to play,
Sure.
but there has been some talk that this game could very well get moved, pushed back. Um, and if that is the case, eh, I don't think it changes much, but well, obviously we'll see in 2 days.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Hopefully it does get played. I know. I think I don't remember. I don't want to put any misinformation out there. I don't remember if there was positive tests or if they were just in close contact. So we'll hope that it can play. I think I agree. I think if this game gets played, it's probably the easiest of the 3 on Thanksgiving. So we'll move on to New England and Arizona. I had the wrong team highlighted as a favorite. Arizona favored by 2.5, spread one, two, and spread two. It doesn't really change much, I think. Two is not a huge number in NFL betting circles. So we saw Arizona obviously go down against Seattle on Thursday night, and then New England ended up losing to Houston on a failed, last drive. Hail Mary came up short. Um, Arizona's defense has played a lot better these past few weeks. I think they're playing Russell Wilson, who's obviously having a great season. Had a couple of interesting weeks back to back, but still, one of the top five candidates for MVP. They held him to 28 points. Kyler Murray is leading what could probably be considered the best offense in the NFL right now. They only did score, I think, 21 points against the Seahawks last week, but that was a tough game, obviously, playing on Thursday night. I'm pretty sure they played in Seattle. I'm not 100% sure on that. Should probably look that up, but we'll make that assumption. Yeah, they played at Seattle. So they're just putting up points. Stephon Gilmore, I don't really think he's been as good as he has in years past. Um, I could see this one getting, I don't want to say ugly, but I don't think New England's going to have any shot at stopping Arizona's offense in the first half. And, they could run up the score a little bit. And New England's offense, they're just not firing very well. They did not have a great showing against Houston. So I know Arizona is a road favorite. Always a bit of a challenge to bet a road favorite, but in this case, it's a small enough line that I'm leaning towards Arizona. But we'll see what Tyler thinks.
So with this one, we have to remember that this is a West Coast team going to the East Coast. Um, that is going to factor into this game somewhat. I don't think that the offense isn't going to look as sharp as it usually does for Arizona. But at the same time, I don't think New England is a good team at all. I think they are being helped by the fact that they get to play the Jets. Um, and like Cam Newton, he's going to have one heck of a game if they are going to beat Arizona. And I just don't see that happening at all. I think Arizona is by far the better team. I do think that uh, the chances of it getting out of hand, like you mentioned, slightly decreases because of the fact that it is a noon game on the East Coast
hmm
for Arizona. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be too close at all.
hmm
Uh, I think I think Arizona is going to win 28-17. I think that it's going to be 28-10, and New England's going to score kind of a late touchdown to make it not look as bad as it was. So,
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. That is a good point. Those East Coast games are very challenging for the West Coast teams. Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat. They have played some close games. Pretty much most of their games this year have been fairly close, even their losses. A couple, a few blowouts here and there, but obviously they beat the Ravens a few weeks ago. And I think that's inflating the spread. Even though Houston lost, or they lost to Houston, that wasn't a huge TV game. There's a lot of other games going on. New Orleans and you know Tennessee, Baltimore. So I don't know if many people got an opportunity to watch New England and Houston. I watched a little bit of it, not a ton, but I think in people's minds, New England is still a much better team than even what their record would indicate. They're just not healthy. Um, Cam, I like Cam, but yeah, I agree. I think this is one that Arizona takes. I'll be a little more bullish. I'll say but yeah, I just don't see New England keeping up with Arizona. I'll go ahead and put this one down as a 31-24 game for Arizona.
See, and with this game, like I'm looking at the previous games for New England, they beat the Dolphins week one. Uh, you know, Miami was not very good at the beginning of the year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they struggled. Then they beat the Raiders again. The Raiders were struggling in the beginning of the year. They definitely gotten hot. And then you have the Jets, which it's hard not to beat the Jets. And then the Ravens. That's kind of the wild card. It's like they have the talent there to be one of the better teams in the NFL. But again, we just talked about how the Ravens have been struggling, and I just think that's the cause of New England winning that game. Is I almost feel that the Ravens stepped down to play at New England's level rather than New England playing at the Ravens
Mm-hmm.
level.
Yeah, that,
So,
yeah.
all right, should we go to the next one?
Let's do it.
We have Minnesota visiting the Carolina Panthers.
Is
Um,
that is that? I have that backwards. Are they the home team or are they the away team?
Actually, sorry, you are correct.
Okay.
It is Carolina traveling to Minnesota. Sorry, I had that wrong on my computer screen. But yeah, so Carolina has been riddled with injuries, especially at the running back position.
Mm-hmm.
Christian McCaffrey, is he going to be hurt? Is he not? It's kind of a coin flip each week. I think I don't know
He's
if he's
out.
out or
Yeah, he's
is
listed
he?
as out. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that means Mike Davis is going to be starting at running back. Um, Teddy Bridgewater is questionable. I think he'll end up playing. Uh, and ah, this this game is definitely a toss up for me. I don't think Minnesota is is uh, better than Carolina. I understand you give 3 points to the home team, so you're saying that Minnesota is 1.5 points better than Carolina. I don't see that. I think that again is inflated by Minnesota's victory this past week against Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken,
2 weeks ago, but yeah,
or
I
two
think.
weeks ago. Um, and they also won this past week, if I'm not mistaken,
They lost on a 2-minute drive by the Cowboys, I
by
believe.
the Cowboys. Okay,
Yeah, or and
yeah.
and the Packers win was 3 weeks ago. I think they beat the Bears on Monday night after that. So.
Oh wow, I am all off. Okay, okay, yeah. Um,
You got your
yeah.
notes right. Just the timing's a little
Yeah.
off.
I I just think Teddy Bridgewater is a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. Um, although I think Dalvin Cook is by far superior than Mike Davis. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Panthers are going to kind of see what NFC North football is. I think it's going to be ground and pound because I don't see either quarterback uh, throwing the ball left, right, and center. I think it's going to be a battle of the running backs, and I think that the Vikings are going to squeak out a victory barely, and it's
Mhm.
going to be a last-second field goal most likely.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement. I think the biggest thing in this game is health, and I'm looking at the Panthers injury report. They have some guys listed. Most players on the injury report were full participants in practice. Obviously, there's a couple DNPs like Christian McCaffrey, Russell Okung, a couple defensive players. Um, but it does look like Teddy Bridgewater will play. I agree also that he's probably a better quarterback than Minnesota. The one thing that kind of scares me here is Carolina's defense against the run has not been stellar this year, to say the least. They've given up more than 100 rushing yards in. I was looking at the offense there. Uh, all but 3 games, and those 3 games that they didn't, they played the Bears, Lions, and Chiefs. We all know the Bears. They got a 1950s offense. The Chiefs, that was a back and forth game when Teddy Bridgewater played, and then the Lions. Lions are also not a very good team. I do think one of the biggest things in this game is Matt Rule. I know Carolina's record isn't stellar, but my goodness, I think he's a top five coach in the NFL this year. And Mike Zimmer's been doing this a long time. He's also a fantastic coach. But I think it's hard for you to tell me that, hey, you've got a top five coach, at least in the NFC, and he's more than a 3 point underdog on the road. Um, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I do think Minnesota will win. I think, but they're going to ride Dalvin Cook, but I do think Carolina is going to cover. My prediction for this game, both defenses probably not going to play great. There's going to be a lot of big games. It's going to be a wide open game. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go 27-24, Minnesota.
Okay, and for my score, I I think it's gonna be a. Oof, this is a tough one. Let's go with a 24-21 Minnesota.
Okay, very good.
Um, yeah, and our next game we have Cleveland visiting Jacksonville down in Florida.
Indeed, we do.
Um, we have the Jaguars who are 1-9 and the Browns who are 7-3 currently. Um, Looking at the injury report, the big thing is Gardner Minshew being questionable. Um, I don't know if he was a full participant or not. Do you have that information?
Looks like the one I'm showing. This is last week. He was out, so
Yep.
I don't have an updated one yet for them.
Okay. Yeah. So I just have one that says that he's questionable right now. And I think that is going to be the difference on whether Jacksonville is close or not. If he's out, I believe that the Browns kind of pull away from the Jaguars.
Hmm.
Even though I honestly don't think the Jaguars are that bad of a team, I just think that uh, with the injury to Minshew, he tried to play through it, but that was not working very well. So right now, I'm leaning towards Cleveland. Um, that 6.5 number is looking pretty good right now because it's not 7 yet.
Hmm.
Um, but what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah. So this is. I just realized I had Jacksonville spelled wrong, so I'll fix that. Is that spelled right? I don't know how to spell Jacksonville.
It's Jackson Ville.
Okay, I don't know how I messed that up. It's like that,
Yep.
Jacksonville. Okay,
Yep.
I think I comboed the
Abbreviation.
JAX and then the actual
Yep.
name. This is one where I actually disagree with you a little bit. I know Jacksonville beat Indianapolis week one, but I honestly think Jacksonville is closer to the Jets in terms of how bad they are than like the next step up. I don't know who that is right now. Maybe Cincinnati because Burrow's out, but I don't know. I would be shocked in this case if Cleveland wins by less than a touchdown. If I'm being honest, I know 6.5 points on the road. That's a huge road favorite, and those are always a little bit dangerous. But I just can't see Jacksonville keeping this one close. Chubb and Hunt, I think they're probably going to end up rushing for close to 250 yards in combo. And, Jacksonville's offense is just not good enough to put up points. So I think this will be pretty low scoring. I'm thinking this game will end up being, like, say, a 24-13 Cleveland.
Okay. Yeah. So just like you said, I disagree with you. I think that for an offensive line, um, Jacksonville offensive line has been, I would say, average to above average. Being able to carry a undrafted rookie running back to have a 4.43 yards per carry um, is pretty good, especially when most running backs nowadays, I mean, they're not quite hitting that 4 yards a carry. I think, like you said, it's going to be a game on the ground. I think that the Cleveland is going to uh, pull away with it, probably in the third quarter. I just think that the offensive firepower of Cleveland um, is very hard to handle. But I think if things were to go differently, I think Jacksonville would probably be in some people's eyes. Um, they'd see them as a pretty good team, but injury bug hits everyone. So I'm going to go with the final score of it being Cleveland 28 and Jacksonville 14.
All right. Yeah, both on the same side there. I think we've only had one disagreement so far, and that was the Pittsburgh game.
Yes. Yep.
So, moving on to Vegas at Atlanta. I think I had it incorrect. Vegas is favored, correct? On your notes.
Vegas is favored by 3. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this one. I think this one might shock a couple people. We all saw Vegas just do what they did on Sunday night. They went toe to toe with the best, probably the best team in the NFL, Kansas City, and their offense looked fantastic. But I think for the most part, this game it might hinge on whether or not Julio Jones is going to play. He injured his hamstring, I believe, in the game on Sunday. Is the injury report you're looking at? Does it have him listed on there? Out of
It
curiosity.
has him as questionable.
Questionable. Okay.
Yep.
So, if you're betting this later in the week and there's been some line shift, I would definitely take a look at whether or not he's been upgraded or downgraded to questionable, doubtful, probable, or, out or in. Um, Las Vegas doesn't have the best defense, but obviously you got a dynamic playmaker in Julio Jones that could really change the tide. With him being questionable, even if he does play, it doesn't sound like he might be at his full you know participant ishness, if that's a word. This is another game where it's an East Coast game for a West Coast team, and Vegas is kind of coming off a short week. They played Sunday night, and they might be a little bit deflated. It's really, for me, I'll give a pick here probably, but I would wait to see until tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday, to see what Julio his status is. But we'll see what you think.
Yeah, so looking at the stats currently, Atlanta is ranked second in terms of passing yards for offense, ranked 23rd for rushing. Um, the Raiders' defense is not that great, especially their pass defense. I think that Atlanta could throw the ball uh, on the Raiders pretty well this coming Saturday. Um, and what the Raiders do well is run the ball. And you would be surprised that Atlanta is the ninth ranked uh, rushing defense in terms of yards per game. Um, so there's a very good chance that it's going to take Josh Jacobs a while to get going, um, which would allow Atlanta to hang in there. Again, like you said, if Julio Jones does play and he's 100%, that is a game changer on the field 70% of the time. Um, Julio Jones with Calvin Ridley, probably the top two pairing in the NFL, at least, top three in all the NFL. Um, and Matt Ryan has been pretty decent this year. So I could see Atlanta hanging around. Could they win? I think they could. Right now, I am leaning towards Atlanta covering and possibly winning. Um, I'm gonna have to think on this while you make your pick. But what are you thinking right now?
Yeah. So I'll make my pick based on the assumption that Julio will play and be out on the field for at least 50% of the snaps. I think if that's the case, I'm kind of in agreement. I think Vegas will win, but I think Atlanta will cover. I think Atlanta might get out to a decent lead because Vegas has the hangover, East Coast team, the hangover from losing, I should say, to clarify, and the East Coast team or West Coast team on an East Coast early start. So this one, I think it'll be a fairly high scoring game. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Raiders 28-27.
Okay. Um, I think Atlanta is going to pull it out. I'm gonna go with Atlanta winning with a score of 27-24. I think that it's going to be a combination of Julio playing along with the Atlanta Falcons stuffing Josh Jacobs early in the game. I think it's going to be that combination that will propel the Falcons to winning the game and covering.
All right.
So next we have the Los Angeles Chargers against Buffalo. The game is being played in Buffalo. Again, another cross country game. This week is just riddled with them of West Coast teams playing noon games against East Coast teams.
Yeah,
This
gosh.
game has I haven't checked the weather report, but the weather could very well play into this game. And that leads me to looking at the run game. Right now, the Chargers are ranked 10th in terms of yards, and Buffalo is ranked 27th. That is not good. Buffalo's rush defense is also in the bottom uh, fourth of the league, whereas the Chargers are in the top half. So this one right now is currently Buffalo minus 5.5. Um, Again, depending on the weather, I will look this up while you
Yeah.
talk about this game. But what are you thinking?
So, you ready for a hot take here?
Yes.
I think Justin Herbert this year has been probably the third best quarterback in the entire NFL.
Ooh, okay.
Um, Maybe fourth best. We'll say fourth best. Obviously, Mahomes is doing what he's doing. I think Wilson and Rodgers have both been better, but I think Herbert he's been the fourth best quarterback in the entire league. Now, Sean McDermott is a great coach. He's done a lot of good stuff with Buffalo. You know, the Chargers they find ways to lose, but they lose them close. I don't think, and I'm just looking up the scores here. I don't think they've had a loss more than one possession this year. No, they have not. Their biggest loss this year was an 8 point loss to the Dolphins. So, 5.5 points with, I'm going to say, an elite quarterback like Herbert on the road. I'm ready to jump in on that. I do think Buffalo is very good. I think they will win. But I think this big of a spread with a quarterback like Herbert, um, I think there's no way you can. I think there's no way you can't take the Chargers here. So my pick while you're thinking about what you're gonna do, I think the Chargers will probably be a back and forth game, and in typical Chargers fashion, I think they're gonna lose it last second driving down the field.
Okay.
So my pick is going to be Buffalo 28, Los Angeles 24.
Now, question for you. Do you know, is Micah Hyde one of the Bills' top uh,
I think
two
he's a
cornerbacks?
starting safety.
Oh,
I'm
starting safety. Okay,
pretty
it's
sure.
listed as cornerback here.
Hmm.
So, well, anyways, right now did not practice as of today. Actually, sorry, this was updated November 12th. Never mind. Um, gotta find that update information, I guess. But anyways, check the weather. Weather is not going to be a factor at all. It's supposed to be a high of 49. That means it comes down to the past game. I agree. I think Justin Herbert has been extremely accurate and interesting to watch. I think he very well could be the best quarterback out of this draft when everything's all said and done. But I think Buffalo and Josh Allen are just too much to handle for most defenses. Um, the away record for the Chargers is 1-4, whereas Buffalo's home record is 4-1. I'm gonna go with the Buffaloes winning. The Buffaloes. Buffalo winning. Buffalo winning with a score of 27-20. I think Buffalo lays the points and wins. Um,
All
and
right,
I don't think that the Chargers are going to be able to cover.
there you go. Okay, we'll move on to Miami at New York Jets. Um, all the superlatives that have been thrown about the Jets this year, we all know them. I don't know if I think Sam Darnold had a chance to play this week, but to tell you the truth, I don't know if that's a big deal. Um, Miami only being favored by 7. Yes, they looked pretty poor against the Broncos last week. Broncos have a good rushing offense, and that's the one thing that Miami struggles with on defense is stopping the run. They have what you would consider probably an elite defensive back grouping. Um, I think quite easily the Jets are the worst team in the whole league. I think most people would agree with that at this stage in the game. I would kind of be surprised, given the coaching matchup, if New York even keeps this one close. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it. I'll switch over. Just gotta restart my music here. So
Yep. So right now Sam Darnold is questionable. Uh, he uh, he hasn't been very good this year. He's definitely taken a step back the past few years. And Miami has been extremely good against the spread. They are 73 versus the spread, and that is good news for some betters. So I think that Miami is going to win. That that number of 6.5 is wonderful for me because that means that Miami can win by a touchdown and cover. I think Miami's going to win by more than that. I think the final score is going to be Miami 31, Jets 10.
all right, there we go. I like to hear it. Yeah, I agree. I think if Miami didn't lose to Denver last week, they might be like uh, I don't know about a double digit favorite, but it'd probably be around 8.5, 9.5 points. 2 points is pretty big, and like you said, you have 6.5, I have 7, which is a little unfortunate. 7 is like the one of the biggest numbers to cross. You got 7, 4, 3, and 1. I think 7 is like the third biggest number in that grouping. I don't remember the exact. Not a professional bettor. I'm just doing this for fun. But I agree. I don't think the Jets will even come close to covering here. Even despite how they played last week at Los Angeles. Um, Chargers don't have a great coach either, but I think Brian Flores is also top 10 coach in the NFL. Coaching advantage is just too big. I'm going Miami 28, Jets 10.
Very
So,
nice.
yeah. So, start us off.
Yeah, next we have the New York Giants visiting the Cincinnati Bengals, who are now burrowless, and that is unfortunate. I think the Bengals had a very strong chance of winning if Joe Burrow had not gotten hurt last week. Um, Unfortunately, I don't even know who their backup is. Do
It's
you know who it is?
Ryan Finley, I believe.
Ryan Finley. Okay, sounds like a Green Bay Packer backup quarterback.
Nah,
Um,
you're not
so
wrong.
this game, like I said, before Burrow got hurt, I think the spread would have been a lot closer. I would have I would think at least 3 points closer. Um, but with Ryan Finley starting, I just don't see how Cincinnati can pull it through. The Giants have been very hit or miss this season. Good thing is they are 7-3 against the spread this year. I think Daniel Jones is capable of carrying Cincinnati to a victory this year or this game, and I think that will happen. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, you know, I'm looking at the Giants. I think they're actually a little bit underrated. I agree with you. You know, if Burrow is playing this game, I think honestly Cincinnati would probably be favored by a point or two, if not more. But the Giants have actually been playing pretty well as of late. Now, granted, some of these games they've played NFC East, and we all know the NFC East this year. But since week 3, which was the week after they lost Saquon Barkley, so they had chance to kind of mentally re-engage. Um, Ooh, it's funky. They've lost games by this many points. They lost by 8 points to the Rams, 3 points to the Cowboys, 1 point to the Eagles, 2 points to the Buccaneers, and then have won all their other games. So just doing the math real quick, that's 3, 6. They've lost, let's see, 4 games since the San Francisco game by a combined total of 15 points. I'm going to turn down the music just a little bit. It is a funky jam, but it's a little distracting. um, so I think the Giants are a bit underrated, actually. You know, maybe if they were going into this game having won that game in Philadelphia where they lost by 1 point, um, you know, who knows what the spread would have been if Burrow had been in there. But I just think this game with Burrow being out, I mean, if you watched the game on Sunday, you just saw how deflated the Bengals players were after he went down. Is obviously unfortunate. Never like to see that, especially the number one pick who was looking like a potential rookie of the year, although I think Herbert would have won it. He's pretty much got that locked up. Um, you know, it sucks, but. You know, it's the nature of football. You know, you do bet on these, and you got to take that into account. I think the Giants are going to win this one. Um, I don't know about handily, but I think they're just going to. I don't think there's any way Cincinnati puts up more than 14 points, if that. So I'm going to take the Giants 21-14.
Yeah, I think that one of two things could happen. Either with the loss of Joe Burrow, the team absolutely collapses and it just becomes a massacre, or the team kind of rallies behind Finley in a way that they didn't for Joe Burrow last game because they got him hurt pretty much. Um, I don't think that the Bengals have a chance of winning. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Any given Sunday, but it's going to be an uphill battle for them. Um, with the spread of being -5.5, I think that's an easy number to take for the Giants. I think the Giants are going to end up winning this game 21-12. The only offense that is going to get mustered up is 4 field goals by Cincinnati, and that's going to be because Daniel Jones is going to throw 2 interceptions, and the return's going to set them up for those field goals. So
There you go.
that's kind of my hot take.
I don't know if that's a hot take given how much he turns the ball over, but we'll let you say it is. Another thing to
Yep.
consider, we're both on the same side here, but the Giants are also coming off a bye. I don't think Zach Taylor's a great coach. He's not really had a great chance to prove himself. Same thing with Joe Judge. I think Joe Judge is probably a little bit better. One of the things you see with good coaches on bad teams is they tend to keep games close. And like I said, the Giants, their last 4 losses are by less than 20 points. So I think the Giants are, not as bad as their record would indicate. If they had Barkley at this point, they'd probably be around 500, I think. But we'll move on to Tennessee at Indianapolis. I guess I can start this one off.
Okay.
Yeah, so we all know a ton of people watch both of these games. Both of them were fantastic games, right down to the wire. Both went into overtime last week, so I don't really think there's a big advantage one way or the other. Spread, so 3.5 points is a very dangerous spread. I don't know the actual number, so I'm just pulling something out of thin air, but I think this 3.5 is the least covered spread by the favorite over like the last 10 years. I think it's got like maybe a 46, 47% hit rate. I know it's down there. I think it actually might be even lower, like 43 or 44%. So what a spread of 3.5 tells you is, hey, basically, these guys are about even. Indy's favored by 3.5. You get 3 points at home. So this is basically pick who's better at this point at the season. And it's kind of tough to say. I believe Tennessee lost. Yeah, Tennessee lost to Indianapolis a couple Thursday nights ago. Um, Neither of them coming off a bye. Both of them playing overtime games. Really, it's just going to come down to whoever gets a lucky bounce. I think the loss that Tennessee took to Indianapolis, that was mostly special teams. I think if they didn't have the shanked punt, and I think there was a blocked punt, Tennessee might have even won that game. So, uh, it's a very difficult game to pick. So I want to hear your thoughts on it before I give a pick here.
Yeah, so I'm looking at who each team lost to currently, and uh, for the Colts, they obviously had that loss against the Jaguars week one. Week one, those are always tough just because you don't know who you're really matching up against. But after that, they've lost to the Browns and the Ravens. Both teams who are pretty successful this year. Um, and in terms of the Titans, they have lost to the Colts, and then they lost back-to-back games, the Steelers and Bengals. Now, again, the Bengals did have Joe Burrow at that point, and they lost only by 3 points against the Steelers, who are the only undefeated team currently in the NFL. I just I don't see them losing by 17 points again, the Tennessee Titans. But at the same time, I also don't see them beating the. I believe the Colts are the number one ranked defense this year. Is that correct?
That sounds right. If they're not,
Yeah,
they're top three for sure.
yeah,
Although
and
last week's
that,
game,
yeah,
notwithstanding.
and that's the thing is, uh, Tennessee's offense is what's keeping that team afloat. But if they come up against a good defense, I honestly truly believe that good defenses 6 out of 10 times beat good offenses, and I just see that the Titans are gonna hit a brick wall when it comes to Tennessee or the Colts' defense. Um, the Titans' defense is not anything special this year, whereas the previous years it had been one of the kind of what has propelled them to making the playoffs last year and carried that team. But this year, not so much. So I'm leaning towards Indy, but not nearly as bad as it was 2 weeks ago.
hmm Yeah. You're on Indy. What are you thinking for a score
So
then?
I think Indy's gonna win. Oh boy. I think Indy's gonna win, and the score is gonna be 24 to probably 24-17.
24-17. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this one's just so tough. 3.5 points. That's a key number, and any number of bounces could go the other way. I think I'm in agreement with you here. I think Indy is probably going to win. I think they'll cover, but for me, this one is more of a coin flip. I'm going to say 24-20 Indianapolis. So, yeah.
Now, um, before we move off this game, I just noticed on mine that it said that Philip Rivers is currently
That's a good point. He
questionable.
was hobbling around in late in the game last week, so that's something to keep in mind if you are following along. Maybe wait, until the Friday injury report comes out, and then make a call based on that. So
Yep, and it is a toe injury, so depending on if it's on his dry foot, that could affect whether or not they are able to pass the ball downfield. So
yeah, for sure. But hey, Tennessee can't get pressure home, so
yeah. All right, so now we are moving on to Denver and New Orleans. New Orleans is on the road against Denver. New Orleans is favored by 5.5 points currently. I don't know who's going to start at quarterback this week. I'm going to assume it's either between Breeze and
I believe
Hill.
Breeze was put on the IR
Oh, okay,
on Monday, so I think it's Hill for sure.
okay, yeah. So yeah, I this past week Taysom Hill, uh, he had a decent game. I believe he only had 5 or 6 incomplete passes.
Hmm.
Um, he did not throw any touchdowns, but he did run into, I believe.
That sounds right.
And I, I always mobile quarterbacks who can run and actually choose to run are some of the most dangerous threats on the field. I know that Denver's defense is, I'd say, the top half of the league. That's kind of where they're at, kind of that 10 through 16 area. My big thing right now, I'm looking takeaway difference. Right now, the Saints are at +5, whereas Denver is -13. Um, Turnovers change games, and I can I see that Denver is very prone to giving away the ball and not being able to take away the ball. So I'm definitely leaning New Orleans. Right now it's 5.5. Depending on what you have to say about this game, I'm debating on whether the Saints are in fact 5.5 favorites or not.
Hmm. Yeah, this is definitely a tough one for me. Obviously, New Orleans has a fantastic defense, and Denver does not have the greatest offense in the league. Drew Lock has been super inconsistent this year, giving the ball over quite a bit. The one tough thing here is this is in Denver, and this will be Taysom Hill's first start in Denver. Obviously, he played in a dome last week. Um, for me, it's I'm not super confident in going with this many points on a quarterback like Taysom Hill. I think he's fine. He's definitely good enough to win them games. But I just don't think he's quite good enough to be favored by close to a touchdown on the road in one of the tougher road environments to play in, especially considering the fact that this is getting later in the year. It's going to be almost December when this game is played. Denver gets really cold really fast, and Taysom Hill um, plays most of his games in domes. Obviously New Orleans, Atlanta's in a dome. I don't think any of the other AFC or NFC South teams are in a dome. I can't even think
I don't
of.
believe so, but the fact that they're in Florida,
Yeah, because who else? They got
so
Carolina and
Carolina and Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. So yeah, they're all warmer weather groups. I know Taysom Hill played BYU, so it's kind of close, but I don't really think that matters too much at this stage in the game. He's been out of college for quite a number of years. So I think I think for me, I do see New Orleans winning. I think the most likely outcome is them winning by 4 points. So they get a touchdown where um, Denver gets a field goal. I think this will probably be fairly low scoring. Um, I'll put my pick in, and I do want to check the weather real quick. Um,
Yeah, so I just actually looked at the weather. Um, I believe it's supposed to be a high of like 45, low of 25. No
Okay.
rain or snow or anything. So,
Okay. Well, it will get colder towards the end of the game just because it is a 3 o'clock start.
mhm.
Now it is in Denver, so they are on Mountain Time. So, but yeah, so I think for me, I think this game is going to be fairly low scoring. There's going to be a lot of rushing the ball. I agree that turnovers will probably be a factor, but my pick for this game is going to be I'll say 27. Click on that. 27 to yeah, I'll go 24-20 again. Actually, New Orleans over Denver.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Taysom Hill didn't throw an interception last week. Should have been at least one. Um, I think this week, I think that Sean Payton is a good enough coach to where he knows his players' limits and limitations. And I think that he's not going to put Taysom Hill into uh, situations where he's going to have to make uh, plays that he's not capable of making.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if anything, I think New Orleans is going to uh, maybe have one interception by Taysom Hill, but I think Drew Lock is going to have one of those days where it's two or three interceptions, just because they're trying to hang with them and they're going to try to hang by throwing the ball. Uh, so I think New Orleans, again, that 5.5 number, I'm not a fan of it. I wish it was lower, but I still think that that New Orleans is going to cover it. So I'm going to go with the score of 24 to, let's go with, man, 24 to 17.
All right.
Um, I think, again, they're going to just score a touchdown late in the game in garbage time. And that's why the score is going to look better than what uh, the game actually, was.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Um, but let's move on to the next one. We have the Los Angeles Rams going up against San Francisco. Um, this game is being played in Los Angeles. This game is at -7 for me, so -7 across the board. This The Rams haven't been uh, the greatest on the road, but at home they have been phenomenal. They are 4-0 at home. Um, that for some reason that home field advantage. The Rams have a top 10 offense and a top 5 defense, which against a backup quarterback in Nick Mullins, I think is going to cause San Francisco to have a rough day offensively. Defensively, San Francisco's defense is a top 10 defense. Um, but if their defense is out on the field most of the game, towards the end, it's not going to be able to hold up against LA's run game and pass game. I think that this game's going to be close, probably up until this halfway through the third quarter. Then I think the Rams are going to pull away. Again, with Nick Mullins starting at quarterback against a top 5 defense, it's not going to be pretty. And I think with the San Francisco's defense having to be out on the field so much, it's just going to wear them out. So right now I'm leaning towards the Rams. How about you?
Yeah, um, I, I think for me this game comes down to can the San Francisco 49ers get a couple of lucky turnovers, and just with how depleted the 49ers team is in general. I mean, just you take a look at their injury report, and I think they got like 8 or 9 starters out. Sean McVay and um, Mike Shanahan. I think is it Mike Shanahan? No,
E-
Mike Shanahan was his dad.
Kyle.
Kyle Shanahan.
Kyle.
Um, they're obviously both great coaches, both great offensive minds. But I just don't see San Francisco being able to, keep up with the Rams' scheme on offense. Um, you know, and the interior pressure that Aaron Donald brings, I think it's too much. You saw what it did to a quarterback like Brady on Monday, and going up against a quarterback who's nowhere near, Brady's caliber. In Mullins, I think that's just too much for him to overcome without having, you know, eh, George Kittle. I think their number one receiver might be out. I do think Raheem Mostert has a chance to play in this game, so that could impact it. But if that's the case, the Rams will just maybe bring an extra safety into the box or something. But for me, I do think the spread is a little bit inflated. But this one's tough. 7 is a big number, of course, to cover. I think honestly the most likely outcome for this game is the Rams winning by 7, which would be a push, and that'd be unfortunate. Um, but all that being said, I think just given how good of a coach Shanahan is, I think there's a great shot at a backdoor cover from San Francisco. I think late in the fourth quarter they might be losing by like 13 points or so, and then they get like a last minute garbage time touchdown, and that pushes them above the threshold. So I am going to say for this game, I'm going to take the Rams 27, San Francisco 21.
Okay, yeah. I like how you mentioned the Rams bringing an extra safety in the box because with George Kittle on the IR, the receiving core of San Francisco is not very good at all. You have a concussion-prone Jordan Reed starting at tight end, and then you have a few kind of no-name receivers right now. Although Brandon Ayuk could potentially uh, play this game, I don't think he's been officially ruled out yet. And I think kind of the thought is that he is going to play. But I don't think that is enough uh, to hang with
Mm-hmm.
the Rams. I think that this game is going to be all Rams. I think that they're going to get out to a lead by a touchdown, and they're going to hold it all the way up into the third quarter until they're pull away. I'm going to go with the score of Rams 28, San Francisco 13.
All right. I think that's the third game maybe that we're different on. There's a couple. So,
Mm.
uh, okay. Moving on to Kansas City versus Tampa Bay. Um, so I know I mentioned the 3.5 point spread earlier on. That was with the home team being favored. I'm not sure if the same case applies when the road team is favored by 3.5 points, but um, that's a little bit besides the point. My thoughts on this game. Obviously, we just saw Kansas City, you know, have that great game on Sunday night, and then Tampa Bay really struggled in the game. So I think this spread is actually a little bit. It's tough for me because I want to say it's inflated, um, but I don't think is as inflated as one might expect given how the games on Sunday night and Monday night played out. I would have loved to see this jump up to like a 4.5 or maybe even a 5 with Kansas City, but I understand the thought of not wanting Tampa Bay with Tom Brady being favored or being more than a 3.5 point underdog because yeah, I'm sure in his career he's probably like something crazy like 70% against the spread when he's a road underdog of more than 4 points or whatever. So my thoughts on this game are I do think Kansas City is a much better team. Tampa Bay is they have a great rush defense, but Patrick Mahomes he's just going to throw the ball. So this should be an entertaining matchup. maybe, could be, possibly, might be a Super Bowl preview. Who knows? I I think Kansas City's probably going to come out of the AFC. I don't know if Tampa Bay will be the NFC, but they're definitely in contention. Not a clear favorite in the NFC. Um, but just looking at it right now, I think I'm leaning towards Kansas City, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Surprisingly, these two teams have not really been hit by the injury bug. Um, Luckily, looking at both of the injury reports, just a few names who are listed as out or on the IR, but honestly, not very many stars are out. Looking at the rankings, the one thing that the uh, Kansas City Chiefs struggle at defensively is on the ground. But looking at Tampa Bay, they are one of the worst teams in rushing the ball. Um, and, you know, Tampa Bay's strength is throwing, with Tom Brady throwing it to all of his weapons. But Kansas City has been really solid for on defense through the air. They've been able to hold teams to an average of 22 or not 22, sorry, 221 yards per game through the air, which is eighth ranked in the NFL. I think, like you said, that it's it's a game that, how you say, like it could go either way. In all honesty, it's you don't want to bet against Tom Brady, but at the same time, I think the Chiefs are the front runner in the AFC. I agree with you that this very well could be a Super Bowl preview. Um, it's either going to be, I believe, Seattle or Tampa Bay coming out of the NFC. Um, I think that it's going to be a high scoring game. Surprisingly, I think that Kansas City is going to get to a early lead, and Tom Brady is going to have to um, show us, why he's considered the greatest of all time at the quarterback position. Um, I think that Kansas City is going to squeak it out um, at the very end to cover. I'd prefer if that was a 2.5. Um, but it's at 3.5. I think the final score is going to end up being Kansas City 34, Tampa Bay 28.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still a little split. It's tough to. It's always obviously tough to pick against Patrick Mahomes. But the one game they did lose is when there was a great passing attack in the Raiders, or I guess just great offense, not great passing attack necessarily. Um, and they had a good game. It's tough to ever see them settling for multiple field goals in a game, which Tampa Bay might here and there. It's like, okay, they're gonna drive down and not punch it in, and you know you get one possession if they're going back and forth where Kansas City scores a touchdown, Tampa Bay scores a field goal. All of a sudden, there's your 4 points. Um, but I think for me, Tom Brady coming off a loss, he is a road underdog. I think this game is going to come down to maybe a last second field goal by Kansas City, but or even a last a backdoor cover by Tampa Bay. I do think Kansas City will pull it out, but I think that Tampa is going to cover. So one thing that I think people might not consider is Tampa was playing Los Angeles Rams last week, and historically, the way to beat Tom Brady is with interior pressure. That's how you beat all great quarterbacks. You see quotes from various guys over the years, and they can handle the edge rushers because they can step up. But once the pocket collapse on the inside, that's where it gets bad, and you don't allow those deeper routes to to kind of progress. And obviously, the great core receivers that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have, I think, you know, interior pressure, they do have Chris Jones, but AQ Shipley was out, so I think that's going to be a key thing. They're starting left guard. So, if you're betting this game later in the week, maybe check on if he's available. But I'm going to go with a similar score, but I think Tampa Bay is going to cover. I'm going to pick Kansas City 34, Tampa Bay 31.
And I should also mention that after looking at the injury reports for Tampa Bay, like you mentioned, interior, their starting left guard Ali Marpet is questionable with
Concussion.
is questionable with concussion. So like you said, check on that, see if he has been cleared of the concussion protocol and all that. Um, Otherwise, if he is not, that could very well be a big factor in determining which way to bet. So,
Indeed.
all right, let's move on to
Yeah.
the the good old
The classic
blue and
rivalry.
orange versus the green and yellow.
Hey,
We
man.
have
Green and gold.
green and gold.
I
Sorry,
actually don't
sorry.
know if it's green and yellow. I should know. I'm a Packer
I
fan.
So we have the Chicago Bears going up north to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers in what is the Sunday night football game. You want to start this one off while I check the weather?
Yeah, I can do that. So I think most people are probably expecting, we'll use the term, a Sunday night snoozer this week. First time that the Packers and the Bears play this year. Kind of an odd situation. They play again, I believe, week 17. So, um, we've all seen how bad Chicago's been over the past few weeks. Use whatever terminology you want to use, but they are just, we'll just call them bad. I think they're second in the league in pretty much every offensive category to the Jets. And, if you've watched any Jets games this year, well, I feel sorry for you. Um, um, but for me, this game probably comes down to who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Bears. We know Foles had an injury, I think, to his hip. It was last week. Who knows if he's going to be out there or if Trubisky can play. But uh, one of the things that I'm thinking about, okay, the Bears are coming off a bye. I think the defense is going to be highly, highly motivated to play in this game. Obviously, it's a rivalry game. Bears are 5-5. They've just been hearing all week. Oh, the Bears suck. Their offense is terrible. They've got no shot at even making the playoffs now. At this point, they're going to end up 5-11. Et cetera, et cetera. But all that being said, first off, I just don't see the Bears beating Green Bay, especially at Lambeau. Not having fans is a pretty big deal, but 8.5 points, that's such a big spread. Um, I'm kind of torn on this one. I think the Packers will come out firing early on in the game, but then they'll slow it down. I just, 8.5 points against a great defense in Chicago. That's a tough one for me. And then the other factor to consider is Green Bay has not been great this year on special teams coverages. We all saw it play out in the Jacksonville game. Um, they don't have the greatest depth on their team, and they have a lot of good players, obviously, which is why they're 7-3. But their lack of depth, has really shown up in the special teams game, and we all see how Cordell Patterson can flip a game on its head when he's not, for whatever reason, getting a handoff in the backfield for a 2 yard loss. So, but I'm a Packer fan. You're a Bears fan. I do want to hear your thoughts on this game before I make my choice.
Yeah, so check the weather, and right now it is supposed to be obviously it's at night, so it's supposed to be looks like a low of 25 at in the evening with winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. No rain or anything. It looks like so. I don't think the weather is going to be too big of a factor. looking at the injury reports, Green Bay does not have very many. Right now, there are three players listed as questionable: Tyler Irvin, Montravius Adams, and Corey Lindsley. I think the biggest one would be Lindsley, just because he is their starting center, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
And I think if he does play, um, that is going to greatly help their run game. Um, I know the Bears have one of the better run defenses in the league, but at the same time, Green Bay has been able to run the ball against pretty much anyone. Um, it they're not the greatest, but they're not the worst. They're league average, I would say. But the Bears, their main focus is going to be to stop Aaron Rodgers, which I feel is going to lead them to giving up. Very well could be the season high in rush yards this game. Looking at the Bears injury report, it's just riddled with injuries because that's the Bears for you. Like you said, the big thing is who's going to start at quarterback. Personally, as a Bears fan, I want to see Mitchell Trubisky. Um, Nick Foles isn't the answer. Was never the answer. He was just a placeholder for you know, like he. I was excited when we traded for him. I was like, cool, another option. But he he's not meant for this team. The Bears' offensive line is absolutely atrocious. Um, in terms of rush yards per game, the Bears have the fewest at 78 per game. Um, they they can't do anything right on offense. I'm surprised that the quarterback center exchange hasn't been an issue. I think that if Nick Foles starts, it's going to be a slaughter. I think if Mitchell Trubisky starts with his feet, I think he can keep them relatively close. Um, by relatively close, I think they could cover, but it's going to be a backdoor cover. I'm leaning Green Bay's going to win the game. It's probably going to be uh, 24-17. I think that if Mitchell Trubisky starts the game, he's able to at least make the struggling offense, somewhat, you know, look like an NFL offense as opposed to a high school offense. If Nick Foles starts, uh, I probably wouldn't watch the game. In all honesty,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that was my rant, by the way. So go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I recalled this when I was listening to sports radio because we're from the Chicagoland area, so that's what the one we get. I did hear this. I remember it. Eddie Jackson was placed on the COVID list this week,
Yep.
so it doesn't sound like he's practicing. I know Akeem Hicks was also questionable,
Mm-hmm.
but I agree. I think this is such a big spread. I always fear the backdoor cover. But in this case, I think honestly, Matt Nagy is pretty close to losing the locker room with his non-committalness with quarterbacks and his general lack of what it seems to be like urgency after they've lost like four straight. Um, it just doesn't seem there. I don't want to say he's checked out or the team's checked out, but it just doesn't seem like they have a fighting shot at breaking double digits in this game without some big special teams plays. And I think if Green Bay does start out hot, they're looking to basically say, hey, we're not as bad as we should have won this game on Sunday. We want to prove ourselves. Um, so if it does happen, that the Packers get up by two touchdowns, three touchdowns, it's just tough for me to see Chicago keeping pace. But again, the 8.5 points, that's so big. But I think in this case, I am going to take the Packers to cover. I think if they can score more than 24 points, I think they'll have it in the bag. But I'm going to take the Packers 27, Bears 14. So, yeah. So
All right.
then we
And then
move
we move
on.
to our Monday night.
Yeah. Take it, man.
So yeah. So we have the Seattle Seahawks uh going to Philadelphia. I'm actually surprised that the spread is -5 or 5.5. I think that Seattle is a Super Bowl contender at this point. I believe that the Eagles are nowhere near that. Carson Wentz has played terrible this year. Russell Wilson has been playing out of his mind this year. Um, yeah, so this game is it could get interesting depending on whether or not Carson Wentz, the one from the first 3 years of his career shows up, um, because the Seattle's pass defense has not been very good. They are giving up 343 yards through the air. Um, but in all honesty, I think that doesn't matter because I think the Eagles are not that great.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think the receiving core of the Eagles is very good. I don't think uh, they're able to get some separation uh, from teams' cornerbacks.
Hmm.
It's it's it could be pretty bad by the end of it. Also looking at the Eagles injury report, Cravan LeBlanc was put on injured reserved. I don't know whether or not he was the starting cornerback or not, but I Seattle has so many weapons. DJ Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, um, that I don't think it matters who the Eagles um, put at cornerback. They're just going to get either ran by or just bullied. And I think that Russell Wilson has a solid game. Wentz throws 2 interceptions and looks atrocious in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw something today that I think Wentz leads the entire league in interceptions thrown, fumbles, and sacks taken. Uh, that's the unholy trifecta, to be certain. Um, yeah, he's. It looks like whenever I've watched him, I haven't watched a ton of Eagles this year because who wants to watch the NFC East when there's other great games on? Um, he's looked like he's trying to just play hero ball and he doesn't need to play hero ball. It's like he's trying to be Russell Wilson when he doesn't need to. Um, I know their offensive line has been a little bit depleted, and I mean, just injuries all over the place for Philadelphia. But Seattle also has a fair number of injuries as well. Um, it's definitely tough. Philly's just not very good. But this is another thing where I differ. I don't think Seattle is actually. I think they're a playoff team, but I don't. I wouldn't say they're one of the best teams in the NFC. I think they'll get bounced in the first or second round. I don't think they really have a great shot at making it to the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, if everything breaks well for them and everybody's back and healthy, and Russ is obviously Russ, he can win any game. But I think New Orleans, Tampa, Green Bay, and maybe even the Rams have a better shot at making it all the way to the Super Bowl this year. So this one is tough for me. Um, five points on the road again. That's a big road favorite, and my kind of mantra is I like to stay away from the big road favorites unless there's a clear advantage. Um, and while there is a clear advantage at quarterback, I just don't think the rest of the team, especially on defense, I do think Carson Wentz will lead them down, score some points. Um, it really comes down to if he can limit himself to less than, let's say, like two turnovers. Because if that happens, Russ, the way he's played this year, obviously he's playing well, but he has turned the ball over a few number of times this year. Again, that kind of whole doing too much type of thing. So for me, I'm thinking the most likely situation is Seattle wins by 3 or 4 points. So these Monday night games, if you've watched any of them, I think they've all pretty much been close for whatever reason. They tend to be, I don't know if it's a lack of focus from the better team that allows the lesser team to stay in the game or what, but my thoughts for this game is Seattle is going to win. I think it'll be fairly high scoring. I'm going to take Seattle 28, Philly 24.
Yeah, and looking at some stuff while you were talking, Seattle has won the past 5 matchups against Seattle. Or sorry, not Seattle has won the past 5 matchups against Philly, um, all by 10 or more points, or sorry, 8 or more points, including the playoffs this past January. Um, I just think that Seattle can outscore anyone in the NFL, um, maybe excluding the Chiefs. Uh, I believe they've scored almost 30 points in every game. They scored 27 or more points in every game but one when it was against the Rams. They scored 16. I just don't think that Philadelphia's defense will be able to keep up at all. The one thing that Philly is good, and I say good, is average at on offense is running the ball. But Seattle has the fourth ranked rushing defense in terms of yards per game. Um, I think that Carson Wentz is going to be asked to do a lot this game, and I don't think he's going to be able to. Like I said, I believe he is going to have at least 2 interceptions, um, possibly another turnover in terms of a fumble. Uh, I think that Seattle is going to win big. I think it's going to be Seattle 31, Philly 14.
All right, so there we have it. Getting running on long here a little bit, but that's okay. We love to talk football.
Yep.
Again, I'm going to look at my computer model. I'm going to take the cover, or who's going to cover and how many units. Again, the computer's done pretty well this year. Again, I'm like at like 55, 56, 57%. I don't know exact numbers. But if you just want to take a few seconds, look over your picks, see if you have any changes that you want to make, and then while you're doing that, I'll put these numbers in here. But other than that,
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm confident in a lot of the games. Some of them, especially the Thursday games, it's a coin toss. I mean,
hmm
it's a short week. It's Thanksgiving. It's one of those things where it's almost like those games should be counted differently because they are so odd. Um, it's yeah. Um, I'm excited for the my my game of the week is probably Kansas City versus Tampa Bay.
hmm
Uh, I think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be fun to watch. I think a lot of people are going to um, be entertained by it. I think a lot of money very well could be lost on it as well.
yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Um, Yeah, I think I mean, you see Patrick Mahomes, and it's like, oh, he's only a 3.5 point favorite. Of course, that's a guaranteed money, right?
Yep, yep,
You,
exactly.
you can't not take that bet. Yeah,
Yep.
for me, game of the week. I think Vegas versus Atlanta. I think that could be a really fun game to watch. Um, I don't know if I would call it game of the week. I'm just looking at the list. I would say LA versus Buffalo. I think this is a great test of Herbert's mettle. You know, can he play with an elite team? He's already done that a few times. I mean, we also him took Patrick Mahomes to overtime, um, and I think that was week 2, and he didn't even know he was going to start until like a minute before kickoff. So, that could be a very exciting game to watch for certain. So yeah, so you're seeing me just put in my numbers here. Um, star this one. Uh, the
Yeah,
number
and
that
I can kind of cover it
yeah, yeah,
if
you
you
go
like while
for it.
you continue.
Hmm.
Yeah, so if you don't know, kind of what we are doing, units is kind of almost like confidence points. So for betting, most people have a certain amount. So let's say you have $100 to bet this week, um, and you have to divvy it up. What the units are is you take that number and you divide it by however many units you have. So, for example, $100, and let's say this week you have 20 units. That would be $5 a unit. So, as you can see, let's just go over the first game. It says Detroit 1 unit. So, you would bet Detroit covering uh, with the +3, um, and you would only bet the $5. Um, you do this, like I said, because it's kind of like confidence points. The computer kind of goes through the games, sees which ones it is most confident in, and which one it is not. Um, there's certain games that both Trevor and I do not bet, um, and that is because certain circumstances. For instance, kind of throughout the middle part of the season, we're not betting the Jets games at all because it's the Jets and we have no idea what's going on. And we also, mainly Trevor has come up with the theory to not bet teams' first game after a starting quarterback has been hurt. That's kind of why the Cincinnati game has those asterisks right there, because Joe Burrow is out, and kind of we had to see the computer has to see where the team is, um, kind of with the new quarterback in place. So that's kind of the gist of the units. I'm not exactly sure the total units yet,
Oh
but
yeah.
we'll kind of add those all up and tell you after after this last game gets put in.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, I think I had this wrong. Is Philly the home team or is Seattle the home team?
Philly is the home team.
Philly's the home team.
Yep.
Okay. I just got to make sure the thing I used to do the spreadsheet, or not the spreadsheet, the formula. It's giving me a really high number. I just wanted to double check it.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
This, I guess we can kind of go in. This kind of came about when earlier in the year, probably like week 4 or 5, when Trevor was just kind of messing about, seeing if he could figure something out, and I helped him a little bit, and it kind of came to what we have now, and we've been riding with it, and so far it's been working for us. Again, uh, I wouldn't suggest doing it unless you know all the information and whatnot. But me and him have kind of looked it over, and it works for us. That does not mean it's going to work for you. So I would not, do it. Kind of figure out your own system. That way, you can't blame us if it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's a way to relieve the culpability.
Yep.
Yeah. Another thing, whenever there's a spread of more than 10 points, we typically don't bet that just because 10 points is such a big number. And, our kind of thought is there really one team that's more than 10 points better than another team in the NFL? I tend to say no. Um, you know, Obviously there's some
Yeah.
exceptions like the Jets this year, but in general, with how rosters are structured, all the salary cap stuff this year, or just in general in the league nowadays, it's tough for me to sit here and say, oh yeah, uh, one team is better than it's 10 points better than another team. Because if you're taking that, you give me a negative 10, uh, favorite, I'm taking the underdog like 999 times out of 1,000. Um,
Yeah.
one thing as well, you were mentioning the units. So when we're talking about this, is kind of more geared towards like a casual better. When you hear unit talks for professional bettors or sharps, usually a unit is $100 or $200, but we are we're not throwing
Yeah.
around that type of money. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and as always, if you're gonna bet on games, again, we're making this just to talk about football and see where we think they're gonna fall. Make sure that you're doing it with money that you can afford to lose. Never, never bet anything that you can't afford to lose unless you're a professional bettor. If you're doing that, then you're probably really good at it and way better than
Yep.
us.
Exactly, exactly, yeah.
so,
And like I said, like I know when I first started, I think I put in like $80. So, that was money to just have fun with. And, I'm still riding on that money. I haven't put any anymore. There were a few weeks where I made some bad decisions and I was like, oh, let's do a parlay with this money. Not very, smart, but yeah, so like I'm still riding on the same money. It's fun, it keeps me entertained.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah,
So you want to go over this really fast?
yeah. So, I'll say one more thing on that. Kind of lost my train of thought. Getting a little late here. About ready to wrap it up and go to bed. Got work tomorrow, but then we got the next few days off. Of course, you got forever off because
Yep.
reasons. We won't go into those, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I did put a little bit more money down. I think I had like 200. I got pretty lucky with some parlays, but one thing I would suggest, if you're doing parlays, make sure like you're doing like FanDuel. I know they have like a $10 parlay insurance. Um, what things that I see about parlays is if you're gonna throw money on those, you might as well just give your money to the sports book because you're gonna come out losing in the end. So, if you're actually, if you ever do want to get into sports betting, which again, um, uh, only I would only suggest or only yeah I would only suggest that you do it for fun. It's really really tough to get in as a professional bettor. You have to have such a high bankroll, like you have to be betting hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to even make like 50 60,000. So just not realistic to do. So again, it is fun to do sometimes, but always play within your limits. If anybody needs help with you know beating your gambling addiction, make sure you give them proper resources. Again, we're only doing this for fun, for entertainment purposes. We're not endorsing this. We're not saying to use this as your source to get picks. you know Hopefully we'll get lucky. I don't know.
Yep,
But
exactly.
yeah. Just real quick, we'll go over our picks. So, game one, Houston at Detroit. Houston's favored by 3. We both got them covering. Computer has it. Detroit picking the underdog. We have the favorite. Washington at Dallas. We're both picking Dallas as the favorite. Computer agrees with us there. Excuse me. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. The last of the Thanksgiving games. Tyler has I think I have that wrong. I think these colors. So I was putting, so just in case Tyler, I didn't talk with you about this before we started. I'm putting the favorites that we're picking in green and the underdogs
Okay.
in red. So you
All right.
have Baltimore covering. I have Pittsburgh covering as the favorite at -5 or 5.5, depending on where you're looking. Arizona at New England. We both are on Arizona to beat 2.5 or 2 points. The computer likes New England for 2 units, actually. We are both picking Carolina to cover 4.5 or 4 points against Minnesota. Computer agrees with us there. Cleveland at Jacksonville. Excuse me. We are both on Cleveland to cover 6.5. Computers on Jacksonville. Might actually update that one because I don't think Jacksonville's. I think we'll discuss it offline, but I think Jacksonville is just not that good. So
Yeah.
maybe need to update the computer model. We'll think about that.
Yep.
Vegas at Atlanta. We are both on Atlanta. Yes, you're actually picking them to win, which I would not be shocked. That's 3 points, Vegas, but we're not picking either of them to cover. Atlanta, the computer agrees. It has Atlanta at 2 units, so I think we're both probably pretty confident in that bet. Um, Chargers at Buffalo. You have Buffalo covering 5.5. I have Chargers covering 5.5. Computer agrees with you. Go with Buffalo for a unit. Miami at New York Jets. All three of us are on Miami, 6.5 or 7 points, depending on where you look. New York at Cincinnati. We're both taking the Giants. Computer does say to pick Cincinnati, but it doesn't know that Joe Burrow's out. This one I would throw maybe a unit down if you're doing units on the Giants. I think if you're doing a bet on this game, maybe just pick the Giants to win. I can't see Cincy winning. Tennessee at Indianapolis. All three of us are on Indy. 3.5 points. Me, you, and the computer. Saints at Denver. You're on the Saints to cover. I think Denver will cover 5.5 points. Computer agrees with me in this case for 3 units. Um, San Fran at Los Angeles Rams. You like the Rams to cover 7 points. I like the 49ers to cover 7 points. Computer says San Francisco for a unit. Chiefs at Buccaneers. You have Chiefs covering 3.5. I have Buccaneers covering 3.5. Computer is siding with me in this case, so haha. 3 units. Bears at Packers Sunday night game. You have the Packers. Oh no, sorry. You have the Bears covering 8.5. I have the Packers covering 8.5. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Um, Computer sides with you in this case. Chicago for two units, and then Seattle at Philly to round out the week. You have Seattle. I'm on Philadelphia for 5 or 5.5 points, depending where you look, and the computer likes Seattle to cover 5.5 points. So all just for everybody that's out there watching, the units are based on my spreads, just because I have the spreadsheet. So yeah. So, thanks to everybody that tunes into this one. Hopefully, we get a great response. I'd love to hear your thoughts on our picks. We'll obviously come back next week with a recap of how we did. Hopefully, by some miracle, even though we're picking different games, we both go
Yep.
16-0. um, but yeah, hope for a good week. And, this has been the TnT Football Podcast. Hope to catch you guys next week when we look at Week 13. Any closing remarks before we head on out?
Yeah, and just to reiterate, this is just for fun. Please do not take anything we say into account for your own betting. We are not responsible for what you do with your money. That is on you. This
Mm-hmm.
is just for fun, informational,
Yep.
and kind of just to see how things go week to week for us. So
Yep.
that's all I got to say.
All right. So, yep. Remember, if you're going to do it responsibly. Come up with a system that works for you. And we will see you next week. See ya.
See you.